Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and this is going to be the Tour Film Roundup Part 1. There's going to be 2 of these. In this first podcast we talk about our trip over, why we went by car, not by air, and playing Eindhoven, Utrechtse, and this is part of the Netherlands series content which we recorded at the end of 2022. In total there's going to be 7 films and we're going to be releasing those every week from the 17th of January. Huge shout out to our series sponsor FootJoy, who helped make this dream trip come true, really. We were really lucky to get to partner with such an iconic brand, and FootJoy, the number 1 shoe on tour, trusted by more PGA players than any other and have been since 1945. Before we went out there, the guys put together a care package for us in the Netherlands. Everything from footwear, gloves, clothing. We were very lucky indeed, and a special mention must go to the chinos they provided. Comfortable, stretchy and well tailored and in a range of colours. Now most of you know I'm an avid kind of burgundy guy. Unfortunately there must have been some mix up in the order because I got sent some navy blue pair, but actually I think I'm now, they're so comfortable, I'm now converting into a navy blue guy, which is really hurting me. So I'm going to have to get in touch with FootJoy and get some burgundy ones. But they are so comfortable and I live in them. Perfect for everything from the golf club to dinner in the evening. For more info on any FootJoy products, head over to @FootJoy Europe or visit www.footjoy.co.uk. And without further ado, here's the podcast.
Watch this. No way.
Hello and welcome back.
Go on, Bruce. You can lead it. You can do it. You've opened up.
Go on, you've done a couple of podcasts recently. You must be getting...
Yeah, you're one of our most frequent guests.
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I'm Bruce and I'm joined by Tom Mills.
Hello.
And Sam Williams.
Thank you for having me, Bruce. Bruce, what can we look forward to in this podcast?
This podcast is all about the recent trip to the Netherlands or Holland. But actually, there's maybe something to discuss about the different terminology there, which we can get into in the middle of the podcast. But yeah, it's our only real annual, sort of headline annual trip this year. So we've got lots to unpack, really, haven't we?
There's a huge amount in here. It could be a beast, this one. This will probably go out early January, would be my guess, which will be provide some comfort for those missing the World Cup, because I think that concludes around Christmas. So we will be launching this podcast to accompany the filming work that will be going out. Presumably we'll be drip feeding the films.
Sam's looking.
I haven't watched the films yet because they haven't been made, but I can assure you the films are well worth watching over on our YouTube channel.
We just like to overpower people's audio visual senses just with an absolute sort of smorgasbord of content.
Well, the footage should be good, right? The footage. Yeah. What you've got it back in the edit room. You haven't done anything with it yet, but
a few sexy trailers that we've seen.
Yeah, footage is good. The lights. We were very lucky with the weather. Really, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this, but our wonderful host Case, that you'll hear more from shortly, because there'll be a podcast with Case accompanying the Eindhoven film. But he assured us you get good golf in the Netherlands at late October. Which we later found out last year in October was an absolute deluge of rain. But we actually had really good weather and really good light. So the footage should be good. Whether or not we can make good films from it, who knows? Yeah. We'll find
out. Enough false modesty, boy. That will not save you.
This is going out. It won't be edited. So we're just going to have to commit to it. The films are banging, right? They're banging.
If not, I'll just slow everything down to like four times slowness and just do everything in slow motion and just
that works. You can get away with that. There's videographers that have made a living at that.
Some sexy music over the top of it. That'll hide it.
It does make a difference having good footage, though, doesn't it?
It does. But
if you had cloud cover,
it's an interesting one because we've talked about it in terms of the films. Like lots of our films are about the club, and the course are the centre of our films. It's never really been about us. This will be a little bit more about us. But essentially, I think it's a good sort of segue into the podcast, really. I don't want to get too deep into it, but the stories of lots of these clubs are very similar. So we can't just make a film that just says what the story was, because the story across all of them was fairly similar with the exception of Noordwijk. But it's going to be interesting to see how the films come out. I'm excited. It gives me
architecturally they're similar. I think we should say they are
in terms of
radically different clubs. I would say,
yeah, but in terms of the history and the architecture and how they came about, they've got quite similar backstories.
Big cult, cult stuff.
But let's roll into it, because I think we've cleared our throat enough with this podcast and the content that's going to accompany it.
Is it probably worth us just introing maybe why the Netherlands? I feel like anyone that's listened to this podcast for a while will know.
I think we should chat.
I've had a bit of a hard on for the Netherlands for quite some time now.
Oh, very eloquent. Yeah. Well, I think
we can probably change that. Actually,
you do seem to be best placed to tell us, or to tell everyone out there listening to this, why we wanted to go to the Netherlands. So take it away, Sammy.
So I think at Blackwell we play a bit of golf with some guys that are involved in the Foursomes Club of Holland. Great bunch of guys. They enjoy the stuff off the course just as much as on, but anecdotally that the golf courses are brilliant. I think that's well known, but there's lots of really good golf courses where we live. And I always had this weird thing when I explained it, that I quite like the idea of ordering lunch off a Dutch menu, having just played a great golf course in Europe. So for me, there's almost just something a little bit more, I don't know, maybe, it's not quite...
That's a ridiculous reason to go to Holland.
No, but there's almost like a cultural... what I'm trying to say is there's a different golfing culture. Like, I've always said, getting out of the car park of a golf course you've never seen before is really exciting. But there's only so much you can see across England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, etc. I think we would all agree the cultural hit of golf in the Netherlands was radically different. And that was kind of something I wanted to experience. And of course see like the great golf courses, the cult stuff. I think, nobody I've really, maybe a couple of people I know that have done a tour over there. Not many. Like it's pretty much untrodden territory for many people. Now, if you've been to Scotland, you've been to Ireland, you've done a few of these types of trips, you can really expose yourself to something radically different. I think when it comes to culture, the cities, just a great, great continental feel in places like Utrecht and The Hague, isn't it?
You wanted to move there. I mean, I think you still want to move there with the family.
Utrecht
or The Hague.
And you haven't even been to Amsterdam, so maybe that could be a contender.
I've been
as well.
to Amsterdam,
right? Okay, but we didn't go on this trip.
But I think it's interesting because a lot of people that we respect Dutch golf, and it kind of is one of those things for us where, and it's certainly championed by Sam, but it was one of those things where if those guys say it's okay, let's go there, and we're in the business of making content. And if you search these places, like I think for some of those clubs, we were the first people to be allowed to go on there and film, certainly photograph some, but there isn't a huge level of media that covers out there. So it was a good thing for us that we were able to try and get out there and highlight it a little bit.
Yeah,
there's a lot of content on golf in Scotland and golf in Ireland and certain parts of America as well. But it felt like a real blind spot, didn't it?
And none of us played any of them, right? So I'd done a lot more research than both of you, really, because only because I'd liaised and teed things up, and I just wanted to make sure we didn't rock up and make any own goals by just skipping something really important that we should have shot on the first tee, for example. So I'd done a bit, but there isn't that much content out there, so you don't see that much of it. So pretty much, all the courses I was still going in blind. It wasn't like maybe the 10th hole at Utrecht you see a lot of, but there wasn't a huge amount of, I know this because the 15th at Kenham is going to be this absolutely banging uphill par 3. I didn't really know that stuff going in. So we were all looking at the courses pretty blind. Maybe I had a better read on what the difference of the clubs would be, a little bit more culturally and, the clubhouse feels and stuff. But we were all visiting these clubs for the first time, never having been. So there was that adventure, whereas when we've done the Scottish stuff, invariably one of us has played there or had been there before.
Yeah.
So
it was good to do it. It was good to explore it together. And I think we were all giddy as kippers, weren't we? But we've established the
why.
Now let's start to go into the how, because I think the how was...
it was challenging at times. I mean, I'm trying to cast our minds back to when we'd obviously been talking about it for a number of months, if not over a year or so, that this was really the tour we wanted to do in 2022, and trying to make diaries work, and obviously the commitments that we all have, it was challenging. But I think it got halfway through the summer. Maybe I'm thinking sort of June, July time. We were like, right, we've found some dates.
We got the dates, didn't we?
October.
I think this is a good time.
No, it was September, wasn't it?
Well, it was initially September,
and this is where
but
the
this
Dutch,
is-
Yeah, I think
the Dutch way comes in, because I remember. Do you remember we had that massive conversation? We're like, right, these are literally the only dates we can do in
Yeah.
the second half of the year where we can clear 4 days to go on tour and do this together. So I emailed Case, and the Dutch just have a very. I mean, Willem explained it to us over dinner, didn't he? A little bit on the last night, which we'll no doubt talk about. The Dutch have a different way of communicating. They just don't mince their words. They're clear and categoric. They're not rude, but it's just the way. Whereas we are not efficient with our words. I'm not. We dance around it. It's not really clear when we answer questions. So I'd emailed these dates to Case, and he was just like, reply back was, Sam, I'm not very happy at all with this. I was just like, oh Christ, well, we've burnt the bridges there, boys. Holland's off in perpetuity. But then we managed to circle around on the very back end of October, which is the 4 days before the clocks changed. So, kind of shades of that first Scotland trip we did.
We were a bit worried, weren't we, that not just the light, but the weather just being a bit questionable, but it ended up being, perfect time of year. We literally couldn't have picked 4 better days, I don't think, in the whole year to go and play.
I was tasked with
we delegated well, didn't we?
getting travel. So in fact, I think Sam's was, well, I've done everything else, so you can just go and do the
Can
travel.
you sort of travel out?
I've sorted out the golf, so you just...
Which actually Bruce ended up bailing you out, but please continue.
Yeah, so I booked with, I know that we've touched on our official sponsor with FootJoy. Thank you, FootJoy. But the first unofficial sponsor of this podcast has to be KLM, who tried desperately to keep us away from Holland. I mean, they really
couldn't have tried any harder.
We booked our flights. We'd done. We paid for the golf bags, which is invariably more
wings on the
expensive
plane
than the flights. And you think, okay, well, Sam was going on holiday with his family at like 6 a.m. the next day, the day after we returned. So like the very, very last flight we could get was 5 p.m. on the Saturday, I think it was. So we had these flights booked in. It was all looking brilliant. And I get an email from KLM saying, well, I'm assuming they did it because not enough people signed up to the flight, but they cancelled the 5 p.m. flight and put us on a 11 p.m. flight, which you couldn't do because it wouldn't get you back in time.
I think that was certainly high risk to my marriage. Yeah,
and it would have been troublesome with your wife getting on a plane with your son to Tenerife without you. I think that would have been
that would have been a problem.
To which I sent KLM an email and said, well, that's brilliant. Can I cancel the return flight then, please? Because we'll just fly back with a different carrier. And then that's when the fireworks really started.
Yeah.
Which basically resulted, to paraphrase, them saying, no, you can't do that, so we're going to cancel all of your flights now. Then removed your booking entirely.
So we now had no outbound flight.
No outbound flight either. Then they said, well, we'll refund you, but then they refunded you like 20p on the pound or something stupid.
Less than that,
so we were massively out of pocket.
And then asked me to rebook the original flight for 3 times as much as we paid for the
and then
original
someone
flight.
came up with a ludicrous idea of driving, and I was like, yeah, that's just absolutely absurd. There's no way we're doing it. And I'll be honest, my words, it was...
Well,
it
2-3
was really
weeks
good.
out, so for context, this all kicked off about 2 weeks before we were due to go to Holland. We've obviously been hauled over a barrel by KLM. Wasn't looking good flying out there. Tom and I then decided that we should take a car. I don't think we were particularly clear between us, to be fair to Sam, as to what that car was actually going to do.
I think it was common sense, though.
Well, no, I don't know if it was, because there was talk of a ferry.
You kept saying ferry.
There was talk of the Eurotunnel. We actually meant the Eurotunnel, but I definitely threw the word ferry in plenty of times. And Sam, I think, was playing golf on a Saturday. Surprisingly, Tom and I weren't. But on a Saturday in question, Sam was playing golf and had a couple of glasses of wine at lunch, and then just sent a barrage of WhatsApp saying, I'm absolutely not driving. Insane idea. No,
you can
I've
get
got
on
to
a flight
fly
for 45 minutes from Birmingham. I'm just not doing it, boys.
I'm just not doing it. Yeah.
Which, when we loaded up the car,
it all
was
looked in doubt for a bit.
There was no way we would have actually been able to fly with all the gear we took over there with us. But I just had these desperate ideas that I was going to be stranded on the coast at Calais, just watching a flight to Tenerife take off over my head.
I think we must say, I mean, I knew obviously driving takes longer. Clearly, we drove from Birmingham to Eindhoven, essentially.
Not crazy long though. Same as Castle Stewart.
Yeah, but it took us probably the driving time was 6 hours and the shuttle was 40 minutes.
How good is that bloody Eurotunnel?
Eurotunnel is superb.
Flexi Plus or whatever we got on there. Breeze up, go and grab a sandwich and a drink.
Yeah.
And then do some swing instruction outside on the car.
Calais, yeah.
Like we basically spent both journeys at half an hour, and I think we did, of that hour, at least 52 minutes pointed at Tom Mills's impact position.
Yeah, we did really got into some swing.
5 days apart, either of those journeys.
I'm crunching the ball a minute, by the way, so I don't know why you're bringing me into this. I'm mutilating the golf
Mutilating
ball.
it. Well, I think partly because
Martin
of that
Ayres
discussion.
would say you're wearing it out.
Yeah, partly because of that discussion. It's amazing how things come full circle, isn't it? So anyway, yeah, I mean, just to backtrack slightly, the other great thing about driving is we realised that we've got to get the Eurotunnel from Folkestone, and 35 minutes along the coast is Rye Golf Club.
Which, given this whole trip was a homage to
Harry Cole.
Harry Cole, felt like, let's go and meet him where this whole thing started.
And to be fair, it was Sam who sort of flagged that, several hours later after he'd sent this barrage of abuse on the WhatsApp group chat.
I'm an emotional guy.
To be fair, could be quite a good story actually, following in the footsteps of Harry Cole, etc. So then we were all aligned from that moment. Week and a half out, we were aligned on
we're driving. You were fannying around getting out of London.
Yeah, I definitely incurred a congestion charge, which I don't think I've been hit with yet, but fingers crossed. And yeah, I drove down. We rendezvoused at Rye. We played 15 holes there, didn't we?
Played at Ryson.
For our listeners that perhaps do not know the link between Colt and Rye, obviously we're going to go on to talk about what Colt did in the Netherlands shortly. But for those of the people that don't know the connection between Colt and Rye, fire.
He was a solicitor for many years, and his first foray into golf course architecture came at Rye, where the course was essentially founded. They'd asked him to establish the links, which he did. His work over in the continent, like in places like the Netherlands and Germany and stuff, like
he was the club's first secretary as well.
It was like, it's really early. It was his first work. The stuff, when you wind it on and you look at the Colt work in the Netherlands, it's pretty much all 1927, 28, 29. That's Colt at the absolute peak of his powers. But yeah, Rye's absolutely where it started for him. Yeah,
and it remains just a brilliant test of golf, a fascinating layout with plenty of intrigue and just a joy to play. And that's where it all started for him. He laid that course out in 1894 and subsequently became their first honorary secretary. So the links with Rye and Harry Colt run deep.
Good fun though, wasn't it? And it was a perfect start. So this little thing with the Rice, obviously Rye only played 2 balls. So the idea is that you play 6 holes with 2 people playing as a foursome and the other one playing as their own ball. Yeah. And you play a match against each other, and every 6 holes that alternates.
Well, we did Stableford, so we just did totting up a Stableford as you go through.
Yeah. So, but then that means that you get to play your own ball for 6 holes, and you play foursomes for 12 holes, and it alternates, and it's nice. I actually thought that was a great format.
That was a really good format.
3-ball formats are not very brilliant, very good. That was a good one.
Yeah, especially if you want to skip round. I don't know, with links as well. Also, first day of tour, just when you really sort of getting that excitement back. I mean, I've obviously missed out on a couple of tours with you boys this year just because of work and other commitments and stuff, and we've certainly not been kind of in one car, which I think is a really kind of important.
It's actually a highlight of the car journey.
piece of the sort of overall morale. And so just getting down there and being on the fairways at Rye and having all that sort of building sense of anticipation. Tom and I started out, didn't we, as the foursomes pair playing against you on your
I came out the gates
Todd.
So hot.
You
it was
did,
a joke.
yeah, flew out the gates. Brilliant. And then middle 6, it was Sam and I against Tom, and then I played
we didn't finish it
3 holes, didn't I? Yeah, so I played 13, 14 and 15, and the light was fading, and we
needed to go meet the mayor.
We had to go meet the mayor,
artist formerly known as the mayor, for a bit of dinner in Rye, another lovely town, brilliant place. Yeah, great fun. He was,
searing form as always.
Yeah, outstanding stuff. And then that was where we sat down for dinner, and we were like, we were going to drive to Folkestone, which would put us in bed for 9 o'clock and leave us like a 5 or 6 hour journey. And we were like, no, let's go now.
Drive through the night.
I thought you two boys. So just to backtrack slightly, because I realised that not everyone knows who the mayor is. we met a friend, a friend of the podcast, Ollie Dawes, very good golfer. We met him. He just came out to meet us. I mean, he looks half the man he used to be. He's lost a whole ton of weight.
There's a health and fitness kit going around the south coast of Britain.
Yeah,
I think,
he came down to meet us. We had some dinner, and you boys were just on it. And you're like, let's just jump in the car and go. Let's like, it's on the.
But it would have been ridiculous. Like you just want to get as close to, don't you? Because we're due to be Eindhoven day one, at like 11 or something. So we were going to have to be out of bed at like 4:30 a.m. on some bloody train, and then anything could happen. So yeah, you stepped up to the plate, drove through the night, and Ghent. But that was great fun going through the Eurotunnel. I actually quite enjoy that sort of stuff. I'd never seen it, so it's like airports are fascinating places because you just see.
Disagree.
They're like interesting seeing like
I do.
Airplanes and all that sort of
the
stuff.
The shuttle was a lot more interesting than an airport. But I don't agree that airports are.
Bruce was relentlessly trying to take the car under the lowest headroom it could.
I think I might have gone in the wrong lane.
I thought they were going to be taking us out of Calais with a tin opener at one point.
Yeah. We were the first car on in that sort of particular lane. It was slightly delayed, wasn't it? But we were like the first car on, and the guy's sort of beckoning me there, and it's just like, well, wow, all of a sudden, it's just getting a little bit hairy.
We're like fishing then through towns because you like drive across Dunkirk, pretty much heading through the top of France into Belgium and then into the Netherlands. Like, where do we stay? And I was like, well, Ghent. We've got Bruges was a contender as well, but Ghent is a nice place.
Yeah.
It's really, really nice.
To find the only non-nice bit of Ghent, though. I was like, should I get my drone up and start droning these factories? Because we just
a nuclear power plant.
It was weird though, wasn't it? Because we must have got there at like 2:30 in the morning or something. It felt later than that.
Yeah, we slipped an hour.
Maybe it was 2:30. Maybe it was
2:30.
was it? Yeah. I just don't remember it that well, but I remember pulling into the car park of this hotel that was like right in a sort of industrial estate there in Ghent, and I don't know whether they had some function on, but it was just like every supercar under the sun was just like parked out somewhere around this car park. So you just go past like Jaguars and McLarens and all sorts. You're like, what on earth is going on here? And then again, we've like had to go down like under to the underground car parking bit.
They don't like giving themselves space to park.
There's just not much to offer, so I think we might have even tucked it in a space that we probably weren't supposed to be. Go up, get checked in, and then we're in a 3-man room, aren't we? That must have been 35 degrees. I mean, centigrade. It was boiling hot in there, but we were all so tired, you just kind of like fall asleep. Tom's just like out for the count. I've sort of second man in. I was just like, okay, whatever, I'm asleep. And then Sam was just fiddling around for what seemed like 45 minutes. And that was the first night of tour, really.
Great opening night, though, staying in Ghent instead.
Yeah.
And I felt vindicated when someone said Ghent's a beautiful city, and it was like, yeah, we stayed in like the industrial part.
Just moving tangentially, I think you can plan a lot with tour, and I think some of the off-the-cuff stuff you do can be just like way more interesting. And I know this is a well-trodden path, but saying yes to things is a lot more liberating than saying no.
Yeah, imagine if we'd have stuck to our plan on Folkestone and just been like, this is grim.
Like waking up in a travel lodge at Folkestone at 4 a.m. to get the 5 a.m. shuttle would have just been, would have been felt a bit.
100%.
No. And when we had the challenge of eating a breakfast in Belgium.
That was funny. That was funny.
But what was the payment arrangements? Because we didn't have breakfast included, so we'd gone down, he's come over and collared us.
Well, we booked the whole thing on the hoof, didn't we? We've obviously got off at Calais. I don't even think we managed to book the hotel again at that point. You know, I was sort of driving. I was just head down driving, and it was on the way there. You guys were going back and forth about where to stay, and you booked this place, and then we kind of checked in, whatever, and come down. And we're like, okay, breakfast isn't included.
Well, I assumed it was, to be fair. I assumed it was. I just gave my room number and he waved us in.
We didn't know it wasn't included. We just went down and we're like, here for breakfast. What's your room number? This is our room number. Right.
Yeah, sorry.
And then the bloke has just gone, I'm going to get
He's waited till I've had my omelette and then gone, right, I've got him.
He comes in and collars us and says,
35 euros a man.
Boys, I've just found out that you don't have breakfast included, so it's 75 euros each or something.
We just lost 200 spots on a room we never stayed in Folkestone as well.
And then he turns around and says,
and then I was like, no, I've literally just had an orange juice and a croissant. Like, is there anything we can do about this?
But he says,
and he just said, yeah, well, you can give me. No, go on.
Yeah. You know what I just love about our
getting away
podding
with me.
recently?
What did he say to me?
You two just going back and forth. I want to tell the story.
Go on, Tom. Go on, you have a go at it.
So then he turns around after saying it's an extortionate amount of money. It's like 75 euros each or whatever. It's like, this is ridiculous. We've not eaten very much. This is all we're having. He's like, yeah, you're right. You boys just give me 25 euros each.
No, it was
cash
50. It was 50.
50 euros cash and we'll sort it out. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
And then I had half a mind to go over to the reception and say, do we pay for breakfast, or is this bloke just literally beelined us trying to get
Definitely
money off
shaking us down. Definitely shaking us down.
Well, we of course paid it.
Anyway, it's enough foreplay. Tour, day one, Eindhoven. Let's go.
Yeah, so that was it. I don't know about you boys. I was flagging a little
You
bit
weren't there.
early. I don't know whether it was just the driving or sleeping in a really hot room. It felt like I'd been asleep for the grand total of about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, despite allegedly having 5 or 6 hours. And so, yeah, we kind of get on the road. It's 2 and a bit, is it, to Eindhoven from
It
Ghent?
wasn't even that. It was like an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
nothing.
It was nice.
Yeah.
Nice drive. Beautiful morning.
And so, yeah, just, yeah.
Eindhoven's
Kind of just
right
tried
in
to
the
keep
south.
us on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
I didn't want to obviously
Well, you've done a big
write the
shift
car
on the
off.
drive. But Eindhoven's a bit of an anomaly. So the 5 courses we played, Eindhoven, Utrechtse, Kennemer, Noordwijk and Hague. Now, the last 4 of those are all situated kind of up near Utrecht and Den Haag and kind of occupy most of like the northwest of the Netherlands. Eindhoven's like the absolute outlier because it's down in the very, very south. I mean, Case, who's the member at Eindhoven that was with us that day, he's like, yeah, when I go out for dinner, I go to Belgium. You know, it's like, it's close
It's sort
to
of
get
industrial
to
heartland,
the
isn't it?
foods.
Eindhoven is.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
actually, that's a great sort of segue into the founding of the club, which was, you know, it's the only club, Case said, that doesn't have, or the only golf club that doesn't have club in its name. It's Eindhovensche Golf, which I guess is partly a product of the Philips factory. So the Philips light bulb company, they are based down in Eindhoven still. That golf course was pioneered and essentially led by the Philips group because they needed to bring employers down there. And I guess back in the 20s, that would be sick, wouldn't it? Like,
well, they had tennis as well.
come and live down in Eindhoven.
Yeah.
They've got a hockey club and a tennis club, and they've got this chap Harry Colt building a golf course for them. It's like that. What a time to be alive, right?
I actually think Eindhoven, just as a tiny little segue, I think Eindhoven might be the only one that's not in Holland.
Well, because of this like the west, the flatlands and all that sort of stuff.
So to come back to the point that I sort of rather jarringly raised in the intro, there is a distinction, isn't there, between Holland and the Netherlands.
This is like we're drifting into Richard Iowadi territory. Do you want to cover what these differences are between?
I don't know what that reference was, but
he's just like the 24 hours
IT
travel
crowd.
man. Yeah,
IT
he's
crowd,
cool guy.
sorry.
I like him.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? Netherlands, Holland, and Dutch. Like, it's a minefield. I felt like I was really insulting people by saying anything.
I'm going to play this to Case before it goes out, so he doesn't absolutely kill me, or Willem, because Willem was the one who explained it to me.
They all scare me.
However, the Netherlands is the whole of the country. Dutch are the people from the Netherlands. Holland are 2 provinces within the Netherlands. They are large provinces, but they're 2 provinces of the Netherlands and on the west part of the country, North Holland and South Holland. But Holland has become colloquially known as Netherlands, but that's where a lot of it is, but it's not all of it.
It's like when people think London is England. You know,
Yeah.
I can imagine it's just as insulting.
Or England is
it is
the UK.
annoying when you speak to someone who goes, "Oh, great, you guys are from London." I
Or
don't know why
England-
they're American. They just usually are when they say
Or
this.
England is
And
the
it's
UK.
like, no, I'm nowhere near London.
Yeah, England as the UK probably be a good example.
Yeah.
Whereas, so I believe, happy for this to be corrected, but Eindhoven's not in either of the Holland provinces.
Well,
So-
nice knowledge point.
There you go.
But it is definitely, it's not so far out of the way. It's like an hour to get back up to Utrecht. But it's the only one
Holland's
where
a
you're a
village.
noticeable.
The Netherlands is a village. Sorry, I've made a faux pas already. But yeah, they're all quite close by.
So that's also by the Philips factory. I mean, nice place, Eindhoven. Very cool. Lovely little drive-in.
How about that
Getting
drive in, as they say in The Hangover?
How about that drive-in? It was great.
Guess that's why they call it Sin City.
It's cool.
Take that out.
First time.
Staying in.
First time arriving at a golf club in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
First impressions.
We weren't sure. Well, I think we parked in the wrong place, and then Case sort of was the only man there in jacket and tie, sort of comes striding down saying, "Move the car up here." So we kind of pulled round to the place where we should have actually been parking. And I remember seeing you're going to rib me for this, but I just remember seeing the practice facility on the left, which being like, holy shit, what is that? Like the kind of like half dome building.
If the Jar could ever have a performance centre like that.
Great range, loads of juniors out there hitting balls, and you're like, okay, wow, this looks pretty cool.
But then you like go through, and the clubhouse is absolutely beautiful, and it's got that little old what used to be the caddy master shed. I think it was the old clubhouse, so like opposite. It's like a little village almost.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and a couple of the clubhouses like that. I mean, Japan was like a proper sort of like they're like little Bicester villages almost.
Big thatched roofs and
they
kind of
so they've got this beautiful sort of thatched roof clubhouse with a terrace that looks out. And you've got this old caddy, I think it's the old clubhouse or the old caddy shed that's like across the road from it that now somebody lives in that's involved there. And the most beautiful, kind of archetypal Dutch, sort of house. And then there's another building which has like, that's for the kids. That's like the junior clubhouse. It's like a little...
They're completely allowed
it's
in
like
the
a
clubhouse.
youth centre.
There's no... You did caveat, it's not like they have to go there. They're allowed anywhere in the clubhouse, but they have their own as well. Yeah. Which had like ping pong and an alcohol-free bar and pool tables and
places to do their homework as well, so they could then do their homework and then go over back towards the practice facility. And they had like a gym there as well, so you could literally just spend your whole day there.
The practice facility in Eindhoven, we did. The practice facility in Eindhoven was one of the most spectacular practice facilities I have ever seen. So it's an enormous building. It had loads of driving range bays. I'd say 3 of them were TrackMan, maybe 4. Then there was an indoor chipping area. It was indoor putting. Then they had the putt lab, which had, you could change the slope on the putting. Then upstairs, you're right, there was the whole section where they could do their homework next to the gym.
And it was seriously impressive.
It was all donated by a member.
This is where I hit my heights of chauvinism, wasn't it, at dinner?
It was a lady member. You just said, when did he do that then? It was a lady member that donated it, who's still alive. She wanted to see the legacy built while she was alive. So she donated the money and now it's there. And
seriously impressive.
It's one of the most wonderful practice facilities I've ever seen. And we didn't use it.
But so holistic as well, isn't it? And they're kind of like, we want kids to come and enjoy and play golf, but if they want to go in the gym as well, or they want to be able to do their homework too, because they've got to keep up their grades, and it's just the whole way they thought about it. It is just brilliant.
And then I just like, you kind of come around the corner, just round the kids' clubhouse, between the main clubhouse, and you kind of walk up to where the terrace is, just round to your left. It sweeps round to your left. You've got the 18th green on your right, and then the whole course just opens up in front of you, and it's just like.
Yeah, because you've got that huge lake.
I had no expectation. Like, Sam mocks me about it. I intentionally did none, because I do like to just discover it on my own. And sometimes I've gone places with too high expectations, and it's not quite lived up to it. But I wasn't expecting. I don't think I was expecting like a Heathland masterpiece just to unfold as I walked around the corner with a massive lake out in front of the clubhouse, and to your left, then it's just like woodland and heather, and it's just like,
I hadn't expected it to be that big. I mean, when you were talking about earlier, you talked about the clubhouse and the practice facilities and the kids' clubhouse and all of these things, and it's like, if you explain that to someone and said, there's this club in England and it has all this stuff, you'd be like, okay, this place sounds like an absolute abomination. This sounds like it could be. You can just imagine how the Brit would pull that off, and it might just feel contrived or a bit tacky, very commercial. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean that in an insulting way. The way Eindhoven had pulled it off was amazing, and it just like you say, when you go round the corner to that terrace and you look out across the lake, it's like, wow. And you can't make out many of the holes because it's so big and sprawling.
Yeah, it's on a large footprint. So
it's 300 odd acres, is it not?
I think it might have been closer to 6. I think it was 300 hectares.
Yeah, we got caught in this imperial measurement thing all tour. It's like,
so I think it might be closer
I'm
to
so
like
glad I don't have to
acres.
keep adding 10% to every number that I pull out.
Yeah, if your maths isn't good, the metre to yard is.
But you just need to be able
really,
to get 10%. I think.
Pull you, but
I hope every listener of this podcast is okay with 10%.
Yeah,
let's hope so. Probably get some complaints now.
It is though. It's just add on 10% from metres to yards, isn't it? But
yeah, it's
a
huge.
big footprint. It's a big place.
Yeah.
It's got. But what it didn't do, which I was really impressed with, really, is I think certainly again coming back to Britain, if one of our clubs had 600 acres or 300 or whatever it turned out to be, and they had that much land, there would be a temptation to whack another 18 holes on or something. And they were like perfectly happy with 18 holes. These are our 18 holes. And they had a little like par 3 that no hole was longer than
6 hole par 3
yards.
course, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Which
6 hole
turned out
par
to be
3.
5 holes.
It was actually only 5 holes, yeah. But it's, the maximum was like 60 yards. They had a lovely little practice area, but they hadn't pushed the footprint, so that it was like, oh yeah, we've got 54 holes on because we can. It was just a wonderful.
And there's been a lot of tee box
setup.
extensions, and the course has been stretched out because it still hosts things like the Dutch Amateur. It's held a lot of events. There's it's a seriously good golf club, and they want to make sure that it can still test really good players in the process. But the greens, like we found out on the second, we were like, oh, how many of these are original Colt greens? 18.
Yeah, all of them.
Like,
yeah,
bonkers.
Yeah, that was a real revelation. I think might be the only course on the trip that has kept all 18 original Colt greens. Well, certainly kept more than the others.
There's very little like messed around with, and yet when you look to that forest and the land that would have been there, maybe it wasn't as heavily tree laden. Maybe this is a bit of a mistake, but
it wasn't, because they had some pictures in the clubhouse, which is when it was
flat
first laid
course,
out, and there was certainly there'd been some entropy, but yeah, it was still tree lined. But
the flow was great. The flow to the course, though, as a result, never felt like there were long walks between greens and tees, as you say, Sam. The only time we had that was where if we were walking
back up to a longer tee box.
I think Case just wanted to give us a bit of a baptism of fire. Day one of tour, could see that we were all a little bit tired. He's like,
they all wanted to play
let's
off
just
the back.
shove you off the back tees and watch you sweat.
The only place we played where we didn't play back was Utrecht, and that was with someone we're going to come on to soon, Byron, who I still think could be president of the world if the job ever opens. But yeah, we played it at its absolute gnarliest. And there's a few of the holes then, some of the short par fours I think became, mid-length par fours, which maybe changed the dynamic, perhaps.
Couple of
some
lines
of the par
as well.
threes would have been nice to have been a bit further forward. But like, I came away from Eindhoven thinking, God, like I would just love to get back out there and play that again.
Yes, yeah.
I was like, I had an urge to go like, I'm actually gutted that I've only played Eindhoven once. I desperately want to go back and play it, because there was loads of different ways. When you looked back from the greens at Eindhoven back up to the tee, you saw a completely different way for the hole to be played. I'm thinking particularly holes like 13, 14, was it 12, 13? I'm butchering this because it's a few weeks since we played it. You went right, made birdie, left it front right of the green. Brilliant.
That's
brilliant.
14,
I think that was.
14, where the fairway sort of canters off to the right. There's a lot of that where you've really got to think about where you want to position yourself off the tee to get into the right spot off the green on the green.
I think I think with this we haven't agreed on format of these sorts of things. We should talk a little bit about. We could talk a little bit about history before we do, because we're talking about the course. Should we each pick a sort of a hole that we liked at the courses? I'm pretty sure I know what yours is, Sam.
Well, Sam, you just mentioned 14, so I think that's worth elaborating. I mean,
no, but he's absolutely in love with a different hole.
I know he's in love with the second.
No, the second
14,
is but there was loads. I mean, there was loads. Yes, 2 just hits you early in the round because you kind of walk up to this green and you look off to the left, because I don't think secluded golf holes is particularly in fashion right now in golf architecture. We always talk about it's great to have flow and connectivity with the holes and tie-ins, whereas actually there's quite a bit of seclusion between the holes, I would say. So whenever you were playing on the holes, you didn't really feel like you were seeing much of the other 17. And that worked really well. But when you got to the first green, you look left, you could see the second hole open up for you, and you're like, it's a jaw-droppingly beautiful short par 4. Absolutely stunning bunkering, greens absolutely bonkers, great use of the land. But there were a number of holes that checked that box. I don't know. Do you not think? I mean,
8. I thought 8 was a wonderful 3.
Most incredible 3.
One of those is probably funnier.
5 was amazing short 4.
Yeah, 5 was
we all played it like sin as well, didn't we? Pretty much.
I made par actually.
So but like no one brought it to its knees for a very short, very straightforward looking hole.
No, we're skipping through this, but like I think you can kind of we're releasing a different podcast, which is our eclectic 18 of the whole of our Dutch trip. So that's going to go through it. But I do think it's fair to highlight some of these holes. I'd say, 2 exquisite, 5 was another exquisite short 4, 8 was a very short 3. That was what it's designed to be. It's 120 meters.
Yeah, like a drop shot 3, isn't it? And the green's got multiple different zones.
Yeah, and it was very pinnable everywhere, but just like the most wickedly undulating within the green complex. Brilliant.
There's some brilliance to the layout as well. Like when you look at holes like 5 and you think, on paper, quite a straightforward hole. This is Colt at the peak of his powers. Like the stuff, you could come across as having your head up your arse a little bit here and we go, oh, it's, you can really see the difference in late Colt versus early Colt and all that sort of stuff. But there is a daring approach to a hole like 5 when you think the time, when he's laying that out, that green that's sort of like staged quite high up that runs front to back and asks all the right questions. And I made that slow bleed with the 6 iron after a pretty decent start there. And it was like, yeah, I've got loads of club left in. I've got no chance of holding this green now. I immediately realised the error of my ways.
You just
and
hit
it was
two
just brilliant trickery.
Yeah, 2 slightly poor shots that weren't bad. That normally on a benign sort of mid-length, longish par 4, you'd still be in the hole with a chance of making par. It's like no.
I knew Colt was upstairs chuckling, watching me. I just knew it.
I think it was because that hole in particular as well, it had that sort of front to back sloping green, but also was protected at the front, so you couldn't exactly just like mosey it up there. You had to kind of hit something high and hold it. And I think this would probably be a good point to just reference all the greens on the trip. Considering we went in late October, all the greens were absolute flames.
It's fair to say there was a bit of expectation.
Absolutely, I hate that.
You're for a golf club.
Absolutely hate that.
It's fair to say that the few people that had been, and some of the people that are hosting us, there was a bit of expectation management on the condition. It's late in the season, growth might be going a little bit. We have the leather jackets that come out. We've not touched on this really yet, but there are there are prohibitively difficult rules when it comes to agronomy out in the Netherlands. They're at the absolute vanguard of sustainability. So,
or just not having fun, depending.
Yeah, but they really can't throw anything down on there. So you're thinking, God, greens are going to be like thin and bare. You think the fairways are just going to be like absolute mulch. So you're going out there like kind of reserved. The consistency of the green surfaces we played on at all 5 courses was
excellent.
Say flames.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use the word flames because I think that's
that lowers the standard of this podcast dramatically.
I think it as an emoji form now, as like this was.
Yeah, that's like.
I'd say they were lit.
Yeah.
I think that'll
Would you just say
I don't mind that. If it wasn't so contrived and we hadn't laboured the point, if you said, those greens were lit, that would have been.
And we played a bit of fun. Obviously you with your face nearly falling off, as you said, with Case.
I was tired. That was the most tired I've been.
Batting away well. Like Case was playing pretty steady. We had a good little 2v2. And then you do return to the house after 9. Obviously, you come back in with the par 5, and you've got that brilliant bathhouse. Yeah,
there's the bathhouse. That's actually after you've teed off down 10, and if you walk down to the right, the old bathhouse there, which, interestingly, point about Eindhoven we've not touched on, the architect who designed the clubhouse was also the same architect who did a lot of the course furniture and outbuildings there, neat. One of which was the bathhouse. So that was quite cool to just go and look at and, take some nice pictures of, which may by this point have already made their way onto the grid. But
course furniture was tip top at
excellent.
Eindhoven.
I think one of the things that struck me the most,
I'd say, of the trip.
Oh, maybe. We have to come back to it because I quite like some of the lights at the pan.
They were nice.
I'd maybe say Eindhoven, the thing that struck me most about it, aside from the fantastic sort of layout, routing, the original Colt greens, some of the most beautiful scenery I think we saw on that trip. Like there was some great elevation changes in the links that we played up and around the Hague, but the actual colours, and the foliage and the kind of mixture of woodland and heathland and then the marshy areas. That was just really stunning scenery, and I think it'll look even better if they carry on with the tree management plan that they've got in place. I think they've taken out over 3,800 trees or so over a couple of years back,
more to come.
And they've got another sort of similar amount that they're going to take out. And because there is so much land there, that they can do that easily, and it will not detract from the golf course at all. I think it will vastly improve, the sort of playability of it, and also just some of the views that you get, like when you come off 14th tee, you look to the left, it's just breathtaking scenery. So yeah, it's all. I think Eindhoven was a big hit, and then
one of the few places we went in on merch. Actually, merchandise was a difficult one this tour. Quite like the logos.
The logos nice,
are good. Quite happy with all the places. Like kind of there. Because these places are not big tourist venues. We're used to going and playing, places in Britain and Ireland where even if they're not international destinations, they are almost certainly travelled to by the domestic player. And there just doesn't seem like there's the demand out there for stash.
Well,
I went in on a great bucket hat at Eindhoven, great bucket hat. I mean, I'm probably not going to wear it, but it's a great bucket hat. It's one of the few things I then
Picked
saw
up.
all tour that I was like, oh yeah, I actually want to do it. Which was surprising.
Well, that was actually the sort of introduction to it, really, because we were, getting stuck in on the, would you call it a terrace? At Eindhoven, looking over the lake, introduced to bitterballen, which was just a unbelievable revelation, a great sort of post-round snack.
It transpired it's filled with absolute garbage.
You can describe what that is, because
bitterballen.
I think Willem said it's basically the offcuts of certain animals that's just sort of rolled up and mixed with potato and cheese and deep fried.
Apparently no potato in it.
Okay.
It does taste like it.
Is there some cheese in it and then dipped in mustard?
Yeah.
Deep fried.
The mustard was.
It was just. Good. We felt like culturally we'd arrived at that point when we were having our little demi beers and bitterballen after our first round of golf.
I love culture,
Dutch
especially
soil.
when you're washing lager back and eating garbage. It's really.
So it was great. No, it was great. That was like the first introduction.
Those demi beers, though. Anyway, the only time I felt like a boozer, because you can drink like one of those demis in 2 sips.
They're like a shot of beer, aren't
they?
But
that's what they do over there. It's like you go to. In Britain, if you walk up to the bar, it's like totally normal. You do that anywhere else, pretty much in the world, they're going to look at you like you've got two heads. So it's like there's a big cultural difference with our drinking versus other countries. Other countries, you don't just walk up to the bar. You just sit down and they're like, yeah, I'll come over and get your order. It's fine. Just chill out. You'll be okay for 10 minutes. And they'll come over. And I've noticed, on the continent, it's the same. If you go skiing and stuff, they used to order small beers. It's way nicer to drink. It's only us that feel like you need to fill like a flower vase with lager that just gets like to room temperature for the final third.
Not wanting to skip ahead too much, but when we had the incident later on that evening and we had to sort of chill out a bit, it was probably close to 1 o'clock in the morning, and we found a bar in Utrecht, and we thought we'll have a few beers while we'll wait for our thing to be sorted out, which will come on and provide a bit more colour and detail on. We sort of went to this bar, didn't we? Found a nice bar in Utrecht, and we were like, okay, can we order some beers? And they're like, yeah, sure, we're going to close up in 15-20 minutes. And we said, well, can we have like 5 of these demis each? And they said, well, would you just like a big beer? And it's like, no, I want them in the demi size. Thanks very much. And can you just bring them like in sort of 3-minute increments? Because they were just really nice to have like a shot and a half of beer that was ice cold. And yeah, dare I say, I'm not the biggest beer drinker, but I found that way more enjoyable than a massive, pint of what ended up being warm lager.
Drove away from Eindhoven though, very sad to leave.
Yeah,
enjoyed it a lot.
It's great fun.
Amazing
One thing I wanted
food.
to circle back on, on the culture thing, when I was talking about bitterballen and beer. Eindhoven, funnily enough, was the place where we first, we're kind of chatting about Dutch clubs and the memberships, and they were saying, no, this is one of the smallest clubs in Holland. This is 800 members. So just to go back to your point about visitors and merch and that sort of stuff, much bigger membership model and actually full playing members. 800 members or so is a small club in the Netherlands.
Yeah, they were all very active. I would say that about all the clubs. They were like...
and they're all great looking and healthy, so it's like there's a theme here, isn't there?
Yeah, but not so much the people were active, but the
memberships were active. People played though.
The clubs were very active clubs. It wasn't like
there's no like he's a booze hound. He never goes out on the course.
Yeah. But it was also like it wasn't one of those clubs that like, you get like, we're a great club. We've got this many members, and the club's hardly used because the members are all around the Netherlands. It was like no, they're all from within 5 minutes away, and everybody plays all the time, which comes with its challenges. It didn't for us because we were really lucky. We managed to get out. Quick, and we managed to get early, and the Dutch tend to play quick, so that was never really a problem for us. But they were, we teed off at The Hague, for instance, and we'll touch on this later. We teed off The Hague in the dark. It was like 8 a.m, and there was a group behind us ready to go. It's like
But there was never any stress. Did you notice?
No.
Like there was never again. There was a few times I've got to wrap my brains here. Nordvik, we were actually behind some slow groups. But
we were playing foursomes though, weren't we? Playing a mixture of foursomes.
Yeah, to kind of get around because we also had groups behind us that were pushing us along as well. But actually, none of those groups, no one at any point broke their stride or got stressed or seemed like there was any stress over pace of play. They're all chill,
Yeah, we chatted to the group behind at Nordvik for a little bit, and it was like, "Nah, man, it's cool. Like, this wasn't like whole 8." And they're like, "Yeah, no, it's cool. Don't worry about it.
It's absolutely totally different approach to it." And we had a nice dinner there. That was the only club we had dinner at.
The dinner culture,
and there's a
Big
dinner
culture.
culture. It's like no such thing as a lunch culture. I mean, they're like, we love coming over to Britain and having the lunches at the golf club because it's what you do. Because it's so novel. It's like, what, do you not have lunch here? It's like, yeah, well, I have a sandwich maybe, but like you'd never get dressed up for a bloody lunch. But they all go up, even if they've not played, they'll go up and have dinner with their friends. And it's like a proper dinner culture at the club.
Play 6 holes, have dinner
really
or
good.
something, yeah. No.
Just neat. Like, I know it's not a big difference, but all of that just like feels like, it's like a different club culture over here, radically different to what we're exposed to.
They do drink wine like we do there, so that was no problem whatsoever.
That was going down the hatch, and great having a designated driver for the trip. Like, Bruce,
You really
I know
fell
you're a
on
bit
your
of a booze
sword.
hound and you nearly cracked a few times, but it was nice knowing that
I think you
didn't have
cracked
to
that
think.
evening after we'd driven. to our
Well,
destination.
so I not to get the violin out, but I was pretty knackered that day. I'm just going around and being like, this is amazing, but I'm really tired. And then we had a lovely dinner with Case, and I thought, right, well, we'll get underway at maybe 10 o'clock, drive hour and 15 minutes to Utrecht, and that'll be fine. We can kind of get hunkered down there, have a good night's sleep, and then we're meeting Barron on the tee at Japan on Thursday morning, so that'll be fun. We'll get good sleep, catch up, fine. Anyway, journey's going okay. You're fiddling around on your laptops or Snow. Sorry, that was a massive faux pas. You were fiddling around editing stuff, I think, weren't you, Mills, and just general chit
I
chat.
don't quite recall. I was absolutely.
Don't know what
battered.
I was doing.
Were you? You were doing
We'd been
something.
lacing some
I
red
was just
wine.
like, I was just kind of like tuning into chat, but like I want to just get there. I just want to get to Utrecht. Like, fine, just make sure we get get there in one piece. And then 10 kilometers out, maybe 5 kilometers out,
It was about 5. It
Yeah.
really was
the
close.
dashboard pings up with an alert saying tire pressure low in the back right tire. And normally, like modern cars, it'll say it's gone down a little bit, and you think you're okay. This had literally gone from like 3.0 or 3.2 recommended PSI down to like 0.4.
You said
and I
to
was
me,
like,
you were
this
like,
is
oh,
crazy.
it says 0.4. I was like, mate, it's dropped 0.4. Like, you can carry on with that. Don't worry. You
You
just
were like,
crack on.
no,
your-
it's literally on
it's
nearly
dropped 2.4.
Yeah.
We were pretty much
Yeah.
on the alloy, weren't we?
I don't know whether I'd driven over like a full set of kitchen knives or something, but it basically was on the alloy. So I was like, well, we've just got to get to our destination. I'll chuck it in sort of a parking space around there. We'll unload, go into the apartment, which one of our hosts, Baron, had kindly arranged for us to stay there, which is very, very kind of him. And then we'll figure it out from there. And sure enough, when we parked up, the tyre was just absolutely massacred.
It looked like a little
We weren't in a good
balloon.
spot, were we?
Well, this had happened, and then just to build
Yeah.
on it, because I don't think you realised when mine had then sunk in, you'd got out and had done it. Byron was ringing me saying, "Are you at the house?" So I've rung him and said, "I'm at the house." So he's like, keys under the mat and all that sort of jazz. And he's sort of like talking me through, like he's left some meat and cheese out, some bread, bottle of wine. He's like, beers are in the fridge, guys. Like the whole, it's like a fully managed. He's gone to town for us, and I'm like, oh, this is sick. And then when you're on the phone to someone and you realise something, and then as soon as you realise that, you're checked out of that conversation. Aren't you?
you're like, no.
I've then suddenly thought,
Penny dropped.
penny's dropped it. I've left my camera and my MacBook behind the bar at Eindhoven because I couldn't be asked to go and put it in the car because I wanted to go and play the 5-hole short course, and 18 holes wasn't enough at Eindhoven. And then I had a few glasses of red and completely forgotten to pick it up. So I was like, shit, this is a real problem now because I've got nothing to take photos with.
You can't do
MacBook.
your editing and fiddling around,
Can't
which
do
I
any
thought
of
you were
that. It's
doing,
like-
but you obviously weren't doing
Oh,
the
it's like,
journey.
it would have been like having like an arm and a leg tied behind my back for the rest of the tour. It was horrible.
Yep.
So I've then got that on the go. So I'm like, oh shit. So all of a sudden, we've gone from sky high, about 10 miles out of Utrecht, to being down to
fine.
pretty much one camera, one MacBook, 3 wheels, and a very, very overtired designated driver at this
I was
point.
fine. I was still having a great time.
Well,
Yeah,
at that
I was
point,
too.
you
It didn't actually impact it.
No, it was tough, wasn't it? Because this was the first full day of tour, and what put it under the microscope is like, yeah, we're a bit tired, we're a bit annoyed that we'd left it. You get past that stuff, but it was the logistical issues of like, how are we actually going to get this tyre replaced so that we can play at Japan, then get to Kennemer and Nordvik on Friday, which was 36 holes there. Dawn till dusk day.
And then
we were
drive
doing
to
a
The Hague.
podcast with the archivist at Utrechtse, so that was going to take up time, even though we were only playing Japan on the Thursday. And then we'd have to go to The Hague to meet our third host, Willem.
And I really wanted to play 36 holes, so I didn't want anything to get in the way of that either.
And then we've got to get back because Sam's got a bloody, flight to catch on the Sunday morning. So we were stretched as it was anyway. And it was all just kind of like, right, this is tough now. And we're all a little bit tired.
Who changed the tyre?
And we're trying to figure this one out. So we had a space saver on the back of the car.
That's a spare tyre.
Did you guys do it?
Yeah.
No, we called a dude.
I thought you did.
Because trying to get it up was, a bit
think
fiddly.
me and Bruce changing a
Well,
tyre?
I don't know.
I wouldn't back myself to do it. I'll be honest. I know that there's probably about 50% of the guys that listen to this podcast have lost immediately.
Well,
any
I
respect.
know. I want to front up to that. I want to front up to that and say,
just
I'm a bit
finding the
disappointed.
spare tyre was hard enough.
Yeah, I wanted to front up and be like, I should have given this a go, because if this gets back to Blackwell Golf Club, there'll be plenty of guys there who will be ribbing us.
Just got to
Between
get
the three of us, we could
jack in the right spot. But if you get it in the wrong bit, you'll bend the chassis. Won't you?
Yeah, you're fucked, aren't you, at that point? And if you don't get the tyre on, it's like
the modern man. Here we go.
Yeah, it was a bit defeatist.
Bloody
I hold my hands
millennials.
up. It was a bit defeatist. You checked out by this point, Sam. You were like, I don't know if you were down the pub that we ended up going to subsequently. And
No, I don't think so. I think I was unloading stuff and being a team
you
player.
went got some chips, didn't you, or something?
No,
That was
I
on
did
the way
eventually,
back.
but there was
Yeah.
I was being a team player. We got everything kind of in the rooms and all set up. I took the worst room as well. I was by the front door. I was anyone that was going to come in and kill us in the night. I was like the first one they were going to get to. So,
But yeah, we managed to get the space saver on. Just it felt like a step in the right direction, but it was by no means the sort of
you could limp around at like
solution.
30 mile an hour, couldn't you?
Well, yeah, because it's like, how on earth are you going to do 700 miles up to the other golf clubs and then back across the Channel Tunnel and then all the way up from Folkes into the Midlands? You fucked, aren't you?
It looked like something you'd get on like a on a kid's toy. That spare tyre.
Yeah.
I think it said Fisher Price on the wheel.
It was just like going into World War II with a spear, You're like, here you go, that's my contribution.
Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. We needed every inch of it. So next morning, Byron's come round. He's like, already, I'm like, yeah, we've got a bit of a problem here. There's tyre issues still. And I think you were twinkling away on the piano, and I was making a lot of like calls to these tyre merchants. I was starting to lose my temper when I rang one of them, which was like a quick fit in Utrecht. I was like, brilliant. Quick fit, Utrecht, it's familiar, it's round the corner.
Globalised response team, it'll all be straightforward. Yeah.
Morning. They all speak English, that's okay. And it's like, morning, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. I need to get a replacement tyre. Can you, I'm just wondering if you can just check the stock on this particular number. It's like R55, 210 or something. And he's...
Well, no, you hadn't even told him the number,
I hadn't told him
you?
this. I know in my head. I said, if I just give you the number, can you just check, see if you got the stock? He's gone, yeah, no, I don't have it. I said, I've not given you the number yet. And he's gone, oh, right, yeah. Do you want to give me the number? Brilliant. Here you go. It's R55, 210, 45. Yeah, no, I haven't got that one.
Oh,
in
what a
stock.
surprise, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much. And it turns out there's this thing in the Netherlands where you have to... You need snow tyres if you go into Germany in the winter, otherwise it's like you can lose your license. So all the good citizens around the sort of northern continental Europe go to snow tyres or winter tyres in the winter. So everyone we rung, they were like, yeah, I'm fully booked, I'm just changing winter tyres at the moment. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So if you actually have a legitimate need, it was bloody 20 degrees. Like, what on earth are people playing
But
at?
there was something that said if it wasn't, we were told by another one of our hosts later on the trip that, as we told this story, that if you're in an accident there in inclement weather and you don't have the right tyres on, your insurance can be void.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts.
She's like, that is, I mean, to be fair, I think that sounds like a sensible thing. Like if you're in
It's like
country
if you
that
have
snows a
bold
lot.
tyres in the UK, though, or something, you have, the treads.
But this is just like, if you don't have...
But this is
snow
it.
tyres,
We done made 20 phone calls at this point. I was like, Byron, I've rang everyone. You will not fix this, Byron. And he's like, okay, well, give me 10 minutes. And he's just like, sorted.
Yeah.
Get yourself here. You're going to follow in convoy. It's going to be dead easy. I'm going to drop you off. We're going to leave the car there, Bruce. They're going to change the tyre. Then we're going to drive to Utrecht. We're going to tee off the 10th because it's 10 minutes late. Not to worry. We're going to tee off the 10th, play as much golf as we can. Then Tom and Sam are going to do the podcast with Ernst. I'm going to drive you to get your car. We'll get some lunch on the way, and then we'll get back, and then we'll play 18 in the afternoon. Does that sound like a plan? It's like, yeah, Byron.
Yes, Dad. Thank you.
Can you be my dad? It was honestly like at that moment, it was like hero status.
Yeah, it was.
It was absolutely hero status. And I think the fact that we did all that, we got up, we packed the cars up, we got across tanks. It was literally the other side of the city. And we dropped the car off. We got back to Utrecht to Pan, and we started on 10 instead of 1, which is, I can assure you, no problem whatsoever, because the 10th hole is one of the most outstanding golf holes I've ever played. And we're stood there on the 10th at the allocated time. We were supposed to tee off in the morning, thinking, I cannot fathom how we've done so much this morning and standing on this
Byron
It was amazing, wasn't it?
he's a special man. He's a hell of a bloody player as well.
Yeah, he's
won literally
brilliant.
Everything in the Netherlands.
So he's got Dutch amateur a couple of times.
Yeah,
there's different ones: stroke play, match play. Yeah, I think he's just not
plays
stuck.
in Scotland. He's won a ton of stuff over there.
And this bloke,
he's won the lot. He's won the Dutch Open. He's done the lot. You know.
And this bloke, who is like an outstanding golfer, was the only golfer that we turned up. We said, "What tees we play off?" He's like, "Oh, it's hard enough off the yellow. Should we go off there?"
Yeah,
it's like, yeah,
he's like,
okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind that.
I don't know if they see yellows and whites in the same way as we see them actually in the UK. In the UK, I think it's like if you're playing at your home club, it's like, I'm going to play whites because those sort of the members' tees and the medal tees. Maybe the odd medal tee might go a bit further back, but we'll play whites. And the yellow tees are more for the kind of much weaker golfer or the visitors quite often, I think, in the UK. Does that seem like a fair assessment?
No, I agree. Whites is a competition.
Yeah.
It's like a tournament competition tee. Yellows is back enough. Like it's...
Yeah.
But what do you think they say?
But in the Netherlands, I think it's more like, no, just play the yellows, and the whites are like for the big amateur
that's
events.
what I mean. Sorry, yeah.
So you think
different?
You think the
Slightly
yellows
different.
for them is like their tee?
Well, they don't have the same visitor culture, do they?
Yeah,
so
no,
they're
they
not. You know, they're kind of. I mean, Utrecht Pan, which is like literally one of the best golf courses in the world, and they're like, how many visitors come and play here in a year? A
5,
week,
10
and they're like,
day.
we'll have 10 a week maybe or something. You're like, what?
Yeah.
So I think it's slightly different culture around, but yeah, but Barron, I mean, just a brilliant bloke, isn't he? Aside from all of the kind of heroics around changing the car and putting us up in his great house in Utrecht, just
It's like
a
Case,
great
though, just another
competitor.
cool dude as well.
Yeah,
And
they
just
are
such
cool
a, like, you know, competitive, but in like the nicest possible way as well. Just an absolute delight to play golf with, and obviously a hell of a golfer as well. Like just that morning at Japan was just, I think, maybe my highlight of the tour, because it's like, we've resolved this.
And also,
massive
Case had
issue.
rung. He's like, right, I've been to the golf club at Eindhoven. I've got your camera and laptop. I'm going to the office now, but I'm going to get someone to get a courier, and it'll be couriered up, and it'll be with you for no later than 12 o'clock today. And you're like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
But I think
It just,
one of the
it was
biggest
all looking up.
juxtapositions of the whole tour was the stress of that morning, because it was stressful. I mean, Byron did save the day, but it was a stressful morning. To then stand in the serenity of Japan on that 10th hole that we started on, was just like, this is the most breathtaking golf hole that I could have imagined in my pathetic imagination. I'm looking at it, and it was so calm and serene. It was like, okay, now breathe. Like, it was just, and I think that's why I think Japan for me was one of the rounds I'll remember the most, because it was, again, I wasn't expecting. It's another Heathland course. After playing Eindhoven's another Heathland course. I mean, for me, it had massive shades of Sunningdale Old. I mean, I don't know what you boys thought, but like, I thought it had very kind of similar shades to Sunningdale Old.
It's very hard to not draw comparisons with some of the top Surrey courses when you look at it. You know, if Eindhoven's this big, sprawling heathland set in the forest where you're playing, you know, it's quite secluded. Utrecht is a complete opposite in so much as it's very, very intimate. It never feels like you're straying far from the house. It's the holes are more connected in with each other. It's very, very hard to not draw some comparisons with the old at Sunningdale.
Yeah, huge amount of variety as well. I mean, we obviously played 14 holes, didn't we, or 13 holes? Then I went back to get the car with Barron, and you guys sat down with Ernst and recorded a great podcast with him, which will be released pretty shortly. And when we came back out in the afternoon, it was really nice that we were able to, Barron kindly arranged it that we could play a 3. The 3 kind of cookie jar guys just play ourselves in that afternoon, and then see a few of the holes that we'd not seen in the morning on the front side, because obviously we started on 10, and it's just great variety. I mean, a real mixture of like short par 4s that you can take on, try and get it close to and pitch it on, or maybe lay back and hit a couple of irons into. Some brilliant par 3s. Par 5s that again have great risk and reward. I see why you draw the comparisons with Sunningdale, because there's a good variety of risk and reward, and they're not all just like, here's another 450 yard par 4.
Constantly changing direction. And I think Japan's biggest strength is a limitation that's placed on it. Is that it's got a very small sight and it can't extend. And I think you don't know whether if they'd had the opportunity to extend, they might have.
Yeah. But
the footprint is so small that they were forced into this little area. And what they've ended up with is an absolute gem where you just fall off a green onto a tee, and it's such an easy walk. There's lots of undulations within the course. There's quite a lot of elevation change, really. Playing up to elevated greens, and you've got quite a few elevated tees.
6 and 7. I mean, how good were they? Those par 4s back to back.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if you look at it, like, it's quite easy for pretty much every golf course I've played to say, what's your best stretch of holes? And you'll be like, oh yeah, I really like 2 through 6 at Eindhoven, or I really like the back 9 at Hillside. It's like, you can always say this sort of stuff. Japan, I don't think I could tell you where the best part on the course was.
It'd be a lot harder to name a weak hole than to name a good stretch.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like most courses, no matter how breathtaking, you're like, you get a bit of stress relief.
5's like the one where you're like, oh, and that's the only one they've really kind of moved around significantly. The par 5 that just kinks into the right. It's still not a bad hole. It's like,
but if they strip back a few of the trees and build the head on the right, it's the easiest thing ever.
And it's a great par 5.
But you would say it's still a great par 5.
They say a lot about certainly
it's the weakest
in architecture circles that you get compression and release and all this as the round goes through, and you kind of like there's tension, the release of tension, and you kind of do that as you go around, and excitement, and then it dulls down so you can get more excitement later on. But genuinely, you start off on this really high level. You're like, whoa, this is cool. And then you stay there, and then you stay there. It's almost like
you're being fully compressed or fully released the whole way. I don't know which one it is.
It's smacking you in the mouth.
There's no
on
release
repeat.
to it.
No,
it's just so good.
Yeah,
everywhere.
And other courses that achieve that, like you say, always have a point where all of a sudden the momentum drops off, and it never seemed to happen at Japan.
Yeah,
and then when it does, it's noticeable. It's like you've played 10 staggeringly good golf holes, and then it dips for 2 or 3 holes, and you're slightly out of and it's always hard to build that back up, because it's always like a game of momentum when you're looking at a golf course. It just never happened at Japan.
I mean, certainly because we started it the wrong way around, but if you go back to the we played it in the afternoon the right way around, 1, 2, 3, 4 really good golf holes. You got 5 that they're going to do a bit of work to, just with some tree removal, and once they do that little bit, that's going to be like
still
a
good golf hole. Yeah.
And then 6 and 7 are amazing.
Breathtaking. 8's an incredible par 3. 9's seriously understated.
Stunning par 4. Then you've got 10, amazing. 11, the par 5.
Blockbuster.
Outstanding golf hole. 12, an outrageously good par 3.
Yeah, downhill with the most insane green side. Yeah. I mean, I've never played it, but I would imagine.
And then you get to
that it's go on.
Then you get to 15 or 14 or 15. So you got the dogleg par 4, then the straight par 4, and you got to 15. I think it is
the par 3.
That par 3,
bonkers, isn't it?
Which is just mind blowing.
Yeah,
that like 160, 170. And I think
16 mid-length, 17 drivable perched up green.
One of us hit a shot on 15, and Barra just turned around and said, "Yeah, you're gonna feel the full weight of Harry Colt on you there."
yeah.
Because it looked like it was just off the green, but it was just off the green on the wrong side, and you were like toast. It was just that
light we had. on the afternoon. We played it in the Thursday. I think again we picked up the car and it all just was now like
stars had aligned.
Yeah, we're back on tour. Like, not that we'd ever truly left, but it just was like, yeah, we're good now for the next few days. This is brilliant. And that light we had was epic. I remember you got the drone up.
Yeah,
when we were going down 16, it was just like
home and got whipped away into town for the evening.
Well, we should just talk about a little evening in Utrecht, because we'd obviously had our sampling of a bit of student life, I think, on that night at midnight when we were changing tyres, and I was doing relay runs to a takeaway shop for kebabs or whatever, which is perfectly acceptable. Second night, Byron was like, oh yeah, no, there's a nice little spot. What a beautiful little cobbled street that was.
Yeah.
And he took us to this little bistro called Madeline's, and we're sat there, and Byron's just like constantly raising the ante on the wine. The wine's just arriving at just like a most ridiculous rate of knots. I think he knew we were in the chair to pay it as well, so he was just like, you want to keep going? It was like, yeah. And he kept saying, was this wine too young for you? I was like, no, it's absolutely acceptable price point now. I think we're at Byron. And we had the 2 Côte de Buffs with, which was like, I mean, it was basically like I nearly got gout just looking at that dinner table.
But because you were sat there in the table in your premiers, you just knew you were going to be okay then, weren't you?
So the anti-gout golf shoe, it really is the anti-gout golf shoe. So I think there's a way of marketing that. But yeah, like, how nice was that? Great meal and the Calvados, which was, I mean, it was like drinking ethanol, that stuff.
I didn't go near that. Yeah.
Oh no, that was the spirit we had there.
Yeah, fire water.
Was it like the homemade liqueur?
Byron's girlfriend then swung by and had a few drinks with us at the end, and yeah, it was just we were just finishing just high as a kite by the end of that evening. It was like, what a day.
In the past, I mean, we always bite off more than we can chew, because we know that, you know, we just need to get as much golf in as we can. I think this trip was harder because we still bit off more golf than we were capable of playing, but at the same time we had dinners pretty much every night with a different host who was kind of looking after us at particular clubs. But actually, I think that's the bit that we've never experienced that was really enjoyable, to actually sit down, chat with these local people about their town, about their club. They all fiercely passionate about their golf club. They all love the Netherlands. They all love Dutch golf. I think that for me was a really wonderful part of the whole experience, was meeting the people we met.
Can we talk about, just before we move to Kennemer and Noordwijk our next day, special mention in Utrecht for bicycles.
Like, a lot of bicycles.
But not only are they everywhere and people constantly on them, seemingly great. They don't want to use a motor vehicle. The land's flat. You want to use a bike, but they want to wear like dark overcoats and drive in the middle of the night near parks. Yeah, they will literally pull out in front of a car, and they won't even look. They assume they have right of way constantly.
I don't know why you limit.
Back into Utrecht in that evening, we nearly marmalised about 3 people on a bike doing 20 mile an hour. Kind of on. I mean, I
don't know why
streets.
you limit it to Utrecht, because it was equally perilous at Kennemer and Noordwijk.
It's terrifying. Someone who got hit on the way to Noordwijk.
Oh yeah, he didn't.
They were flat.
I shouldn't have laughed.
I really shouldn't laugh. But it was just,
flattened.
it was something that we'd obviously noticed by that point. In fact, the most comical part of it was when we were on the space saver on that spare tyre going to get the car changed, and I think you'd gone ahead with Byron in his car, hadn't you, Sam?
I had.
No,
you had. It's me and you, Sam, and we were like, I don't know how we're going to get out of this junction.
I thought we were waiting for an entire exodus of Utrecht on bicycle.
There's 10,000 cyclists just flooding down. Like, how on earth are we going to pull out?
Yeah, but, it was absolutely the bicycle culture. Although, I mean, like you said, everyone in Holland looks at least 20 years younger than they are.
They all look great.
They're doing something right.
They're all absolutely shredded.
They're all
brilliant health, great skin.
They've got everything.
Okay, we haven't talked about this. I don't think I saw a single obese person in the whole of the Netherlands.
Yeah, I could get on board with that.
I don't recall seeing anybody overweight. Do you?
I don't know.
And their alcohol consumption was high. I witnessed it.
Yeah. It was
so they must be
really
doing
good.
Something right.
Yeah. It's just a great. But this is why I was like, I want to move to Utrecht that night. I was like, this is because it's just a great,
student
for example,
city,
we stayed in Byron's house. Lovely, several story sort of townhouse, so much character, but nothing's flashy. It's all just like cool, nonchalant levels of just, it's just cool, right? Yeah. Not a single TV in his house.
Oh, there wasn't.
Oh, yeah, I
Not a
didn't
single
notice that.
TV. And it's like, why? Yeah, because what do? They just like walk around the road and go to a bistro and go and have a nice bit of dinner and they
Go
chat.
to a bistro.
None of them, they go to Madeline's or they go and eat some sashimi or whatever.
Yeah,
but
some demi beers.
None of them are sitting there and going, right, should we just fedge out for the next 4 hours and watch Celebrity Get Me Out of Here or something? No one's doing that there.
It's a great program.
Anyway, we digress. Gentlemen, Kenema and Nordvik was the next day, and we start off with an 8 a.m. tea time at Kenema. There is one slight problem.
So
Thomas,
if I was
would
going to give a recommendation to anyone listening to this who is planning a trip to the Netherlands in and around the sort of last week of October, just before the clocks change, one area that you might improve upon that we sort of didn't execute all that successfully was just a fairly basic requirement of tee off times. Sam decided that we'd get away from Utrecht in the car at about 6:55 a.m. on that Friday.
Off at Kenema at 8 a.m. That was
That was the idea, wasn't it?
That was
Yeah.
our allotted
I had
tea time.
assumed there was daylight at 8 a.m.
And it was pitch black.
I question Kenema for allowing us the even thought of teeing off at 8 a.m. because for those of you that we haven't made it clear enough yet, at 8 a.m. in Holland in the last week of October, the sun isn't rising, it's pitch black.
They're on an hour further into summertime than we are, and they're not too far further south. So they are, yeah.
Well, it's like 7 a.m.
It's like
Yeah.
we'd lost the sun overnight. It's like
Yeah.
it stopped working.
I genuinely thought it had.
Yeah.
At Kenema, I was like, maybe something is really afoot here.
So we're there at Kenema and we meet our host, Christian, and the course manager, I believe, Lucas, who were just there.
To meet us. Absolute heroes.
Bright and early.
Yeah, it was like
big smiles on their faces, delighted to see us. We pull in the drive at 7:15 or might have been 7:30 or
that's part of
something, thinking we're supposed to be on the tee in 15-20 minutes. It's
Till the sun
absolutely
gets to work, we're not.
how quickly is this sun going to rise? It's just
Well,
doesn't,
the predicament we put ourselves in is that we assumed we could tee off at 8, which meant worst case we were finished by midday, which meant an hour for some chatting and lunch, and we could be half an hour up the road, 20 minutes up the road at Nordvik for 2 o'clock. That wouldn't be a problem. That really wouldn't be a problem. But if the sun's not there, you can't do any of those things.
Britain has a lot of agriculture, and obviously we're further north, and that's why we have a time zone that means you are always going to have daylight at 8 a.m.
I wouldn't go that far. I don't even know if it's
It
agriculture
is
reasons.
agriculture, of course
No,
it is.
I
It's
think
so
a lot
farmers
of
can
people
get out
just
and
say.
work with livestock. It's exactly
No,
what
I
it
think
is.
a lot of people are just like, there's no need.
We'll
we
get
should
in
just-
touch with us on
yeah.
that cookie jar golf and
But,
illuminate us, but I would love to know
Why
if
do
Bruce
we
is right.
have daylight savings?
It is
Anyway.
definitely agriculture.
Okay.
Whereas
Yeah,
there's
it's
just
historic.
Yeah. So look, anyway,
Anyway.
let's not digress. So look, we had a nice coffee, we chilled for a bit, and then went out and played Kenema. And again, it's like Jaws on the bloody floor again, isn't it? It is.
So we've drawn a comparison just because I think it's easier to paint really big pictures. For me, to pan just had big smacks of Sunny Dead Old. That's just really like the vibe. It's fairly similar for me. I think Kenema for me. Well, what do you think, Kenema?
I would say all of these. I would say certainly Kenema and Hague. It's almost impossible to draw a comparison. I've certainly not played a links anything like the Hague. I'm pretty sure I find it very hard to draw too many comparisons with Kenema. Gun to my head, I'd probably say it has some shades of Birkdale, but not in the same way. There's
I remember Sam vividly. Sam walking
No,
around
this is Nordvik.
midway through the
Yeah.
back line, just saying, "This is at Kenema," just saying, "I don't know about you, mate, but I just think this is like every inch as good as Royal Birkdale. Has to be."
Well, because they were just
fair.
dramatic and bold. And I also went through a period because both Kenema and Nordvik that we played in that day, the clubhouses are situated on this sort of much higher ground. So I was just walking around going, "There's just massive Shinnecock vibes about this place."
Yeah.
I've never played Shinnecock Hills.
Calling Shinnecock Hills a comparison with Nordvik was a leap too far.
I think
Mainly because they're just
it-
fundamentally different courses.
Yeah,
but,
I thought you
um,
got away with
the
yeah.
mushrooms at that
the
point.
Birkdale one I could possibly see. I mean, I've only played Birkdale once off winter tees and in the bleak midwinter, and it was great fun. But I can't maybe speak to the comparisons there
It's
as
not.
much
It's
as you
not.
can.
That is not a good comparison of mine. But it is.
Okay.
It's a very honest links golf course, Kenema. I'd say of the, Nordvik's, very very pure sandy links as well. Hague's kind of like a weird thing. I don't know how you'd categorise Hague. Kennemer's almost... There's a lot of bold land stuff going on there. The first three starting were just like mind-blowing. I was like, bloody hell, what? I honestly didn't think we were going to top to pan.
There is a staggering, I suppose, dunescape. And they would call... I think we could probably... Well, I would go on record and say I don't think either of them are probably true links in the truest sense of the word. They all were very sandy. They were all, firm. But I wouldn't say they were probably true links. But even Christian at Kennemar said, like, for me, like, I would describe it not as a links, but as a, they called it, what do they call it? A like dunescape or duneland. Because there's huge big sand dunes and huge big moundings, and the topography was amazing. And it's very dramatic, which I think is where the shades of Birkdale comes from, because Birkdale is a dramatic golf course. There's no getting away from that. And Kennemer had every inch of that drama as you kind of work your way around those dunes and through them and over them. And they have 27 holes. We played 18 of them. Sam, can you illuminate me on the 18?
So we played the B and C loop, which is a bit weird. So the Colt... So I think Kennemer was the first... course that Colt was involved in over there. 1927. He built 18, but I think he left sketches for more. So B and C, there's 3 nines. The other one was obviously called A, which is the more recent 9. So that's like a Frank Penning build. I think there was quite a bit of that was predicated on some of the sketches that Colt had left. I'm reliably informed, and based on what we saw, some of the A looked brilliant as well. Yeah, I think B and C is regarded as maybe like the real authentic. But when they play the Dutch Open there,
bit of a mixture.
They play like a bit of a mixture of all 3, and I think they use pretty much exclusively A, and then use a composite of B and C as well. So the names, I think they're named after the club member that was kind of instrumental in helping Penning. I think B is called Penning, and I think C is called Colt. I might be wrong on that. We played B and C, and
I think two is just like one of the most. Well, one
just a lot.
One is like is an interesting one because it's. I think we all have got a little bit of a penchant for teeing off where your backswing could hit the clubhouse, which is like our home club at Blackwell. From the B course at Kennemer, if you took a really wide backswing and swayed backwards, you could have taken out a window, the window to the snooker room, actually, because there were guys in there playing snooker room.
But that would give Mortan a run for its bloody money there, I tell you.
And then you tee off, and it
amazing
looks very
actually.
benign. Well, not benign. It looks like a long par 4, but it doesn't look. It certainly doesn't look like what it is when you get there.
Got down there, I thought we were going to lose somebody in the dunes in the first hole. It looks quite a flat rolling first hole.
Great
you're
visual
down there
deception.
And you're like, shit, there's like 30 foot you falling into these. The land is there's loads more movement in these holes than pretty much most of the link stuff that you'll see in England or in Scotland. And it's like, Holland's known as a very flat country.
Yeah, well, that's. I remember playing Kennemer and just thinking, wow, this is like amazing, like the dramatic sort of landforms and how much change and elevation there is. I think, if I'm being completely honest, looking back, the extremity of sort of Nordvik and Royal Hague maybe makes me think that Kennemer wasn't as dramatic. But that's only because it literally felt like you're on a different planet playing Nordvik and Royal Hague. They were just such wildly different topographies to anything I've ever played on before. But Kennemer was just it felt like a real honest links test, but still with plenty of drama, and that's maybe I think why you guys mentioned the Birkdale comparison.
In terms of the club, because we'll talk a little bit more about the course, I think, but I would say Kennemer as a club felt as close to a club that we would recognise over here. It had real, maybe that's just the dark wood panelling or the kind of the well-saturated sort of oil paintings of the fireplace and stuff figures, but it had a real shade of a British club.
Really cool club vibe.
Yeah. With that nice, still had that nice modern terrace with the frosted glass, out the front. You could eat overlooking the course, and you could go out there where we had our lunch, and it had some.
That for me would be meal of the tour. Sorry, I don't know if I just jumped in a bit there.
That's. I actually didn't like it.
We need to talk about the course. You didn't like the Glipa?
No.
Well, we'll come back to the Glipa because we need to talk about the course.
We might as well
first.
get onto it. We can come back to the course.
Right. So afterwards, to do that, we've got to explain why we only played 15 holes at Kennemer. which we are starting to sound like sloppy content creators, playing 13 holes in the morning at Japan because we've got to change tyres. Then we're going to Kenneman, we're getting 15 holes in because we've got to come off the course because idiot here has all arranged a tee time that was in pitch black. Anyway, Christian was like, great sport. He was like, oh, it's a shame, can't see 16, 17, 18. We finished on 15, which is a mind-bendingly good golf hole, which we'll come back to. And then said, but I'd rather we do this and then get back to the clubhouse because I want to have some bitter balls, some beers. Lucas is going to meet us, the greenkeeper, and you've got to have the glipper. I think it's glipper,
yeah.
Something like that.
He recommended that,
which he said
he?
is basically rare roast beef on salad and bread with loads of horseradish, but it's super, super thin. And I mean, the beef, a good vet would have got that thing round. Like it was. It was as rare as the sashimi we had with Willem the next night.
No, because I could get a little bit squeamish if someone just threw me.
It was beautiful,
some totally rare beef. That I thought was lovely.
Very, very decadent.
We'd not eaten anything as well because idiot features over here said we couldn't have any breakfast. We had to get on the road at 6:50 in the morning because we need to make that 8 a.m. tee off time. So we're all a little bit famished, weren't we? And he just tasted.
I don't remember
delicious.
the drive to Kenneman at all.
But I felt that was brilliant.
I think I was twisted the night before.
I remember nearly T-boning a fucking cyclist at the entrance to Kenneman, but other than that,
you did.
Other than that, yeah,
that's one of those ones again with a cyclist. Like
it's on the pavement.
You indicate and turn into like a driveway, and the cyclist comes down the inside of you with like no regard for life.
It's just like he's indicating, but he'll have to stop for me. Surely you can see me in my dark trench coat and no helmet.
I know he's got like lorries just hurtling behind him at sort of 70 miles an hour, but it's fine. He'll give, I've got right away here.
So anyway, look, we are really jumping around. The Glipper was great. Really lovely lunch. Sat up there on that balcony with the frosted glass. It's an exquisite clubhouse, Kenneman. Like you could have hung there all afternoon.
And Christian was just a wonderful host, wasn't he? I mean, obviously all of our hosts, the whole trip were brilliant.
But he was brilliant.
But Christian Boomer. So engaged about kind of
Chairman of
Greens course and. Yeah, he was just a sort of font of all knowledge, really, wasn't he? And very passionate about UK golf as well. Talking about trips he'd made over. He obviously quite a sort of small golf circle, really, in a way. The guys who hosted us, Case and Christian, obviously got acquainted at the Open.
Entirely.
Very, very good golfer.
But we touched on the start of the course here, like the opening stuff at Kenneman is this wonderful rolling par 4, which is just way more severe than it looks when you're above it. And then you get to the second, and it's weird this, because I think the best par 3s we played all tour are probably the two shortest par 3s. One of them being the 8th at Eindhoven, the second being the second at Kenneman, which is just staggering.
Well, I'm not allowing you to ignore the 15th.
15th's great. 50, yeah, sure. Yeah,
but
again, there's a lot of good par 3s. But anyway, look, great. Like this green sits up in the middle of nowhere. Huge fall off on the left, which is kind of a recurring theme. I would think it was fair to say for all the links golf out in this, because we've played the Heathlands. The next 3 are all links. The huge fall off to the left, stunningly good par 3. Then you play 13. Christian's taken us back to this tee that he's going to reinstall, which is just so dramatic. It's nuts. Like I said, the first 3 holes are crazy, and it just keeps going. It's really subtle. The holes are, that stretch that you then play back into the 9th are all following the same direction, but there's loads of variety within it.
I would add to this a little bit that I think. Look, I'm not bigging up our golf here, but a lot of the time we played off back tees and stuff, and we started that day. We played off some pretty back tees, and 1, 2, 3, they're all great golf holes, but we make par or thereabouts. It was never really a problem. Then you get on to 4 and 5, which were back-to-back short 4s, and both of them made a mockery of us.
Made a dog's dinner of it, I did.
Because it's just
when we talked about it topped, wasn't it,
on the way round, that wonderful comment that Barent said in Utrecht that over dinner, where he said the good thing about a short 4 is it gives you the opportunity to fail, and we did fail miserably because we both thought, oh yeah, I can do this, I can overpower.
But that's possibly some of the wisest words I've ever heard about. I thought it was just poetic when he said that.
Yeah. He's preaching to the choir, though, isn't he? We do like half par coinage of holes, don't we? And it's just
they don't. There's a bit of an aversion to them. I sense there was nowhere near that many sort of short fours. They were like more of a rare commodity. I felt in Holland, generally.
The Netherlands.
They didn't seem as many, you know.
Yeah, it probably
Utrecht
felt
had
like
some, and Kenema had a couple. Apart from that, they were mid-lengths, but there weren't many like, oh yeah, I can have a crack.
I don't know. There was a single reachable par 4 that we played at Noordwijk
or Hague,
and Hague. I think 16 if you played from the members' tees.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's just not. They're just not a big thing. They, you know, whether for whatever reason, and maybe there's like a delayed fuse, and this will all go full circle, and we'll all start shortening our courses because the cookie jar guys seems to think it's a good idea. But you know, I just think somehow they've evolved away from it, and you know, for whatever reason, are quite happy with mid and long par 4s. I think that's fine. They like their courses tough over there. That's my observation.
I would say that what happens when you're on tour is that certainly individually you go through peaks and troughs. Like you can be riding a wave, or you could just want to just like punch your own face. And I'd say around the 7th at Kenema, Sam was 100% off tour. Like
I was getting it in the neck on a few things on my phone. It was just like, you know, I hate having the phone with me, but because you're there and you're doing a bit on Instagram and stuff.
And we're away from our families.
Yeah, and you just need to know. And the phone's like buzzing in my pocket. I'm like, it's like this needs dealing with. So that's sorted. And then I think it was about that same time where I got a message from our host at Noordwijk saying, Sam, just so you know, we're teeing off at 1 o'clock.
1:40. I think it
10 past 1.
10 past 1 or something. And I was like, I mean, unless we're going to play the next 10 holes in 45 minutes, we are snookered here. So I had to sort of kind of, you know, confess up to Christian on the 9th tee,
which by the way was a outstanding golf hole that night.
9. Wow. I mean, that tee box was incredible, and the view down. Just what a stunning golf hole
with the clubhouse in the background.
Yeah,
that's where I think some of this Birkdale stuff's coming in. Is that amphitheatre with the dunes around it? Kind of moves up to the right. Everything's pushing you to push your tee shot to the right, but you've actually got to play so far away from the green, really, haven't you? Left is a much safer play.
Yeah,
it's safer just longer in, isn't it? But
slam it left and then just hit something straight up the heart of it, really.
Gut of it.
Yeah. I mean, and then you know, 10
was amazing,
staggering. You know, just great run of hole after great run of hole. Like I keep saying, way more undulating. The weird thing with Kenema is you never saw the sea. We never saw the sea with any of the links courses we played. Not one. Even Noordwijk, where you can pretty much hear the waves lapping. You can't see it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Not even from the clubhouse.
So, after
foursomes,
playing the last few holes in foursomes at Kenema, sadly we didn't get to see 16, 17, 18, but we did play 15, which arguably the standout par 3. I mean, again, 2 is an incredible par 3 as well, but played the 15th.
Just another cool thing about 15, and also the whole of Kenema, is all the war bunkers.
Correct.
Remember?
Do you get some footage of that?
No.
So we won't see it in the film.
You couldn't, like, but we're completely...
No, but they're hidden, aren't they? So
but the old greenkeeper's sheds, or the current greenkeeper's sheds, I think,
footage of that.
are still
That's
in.
a problem.
So
but
if you can go back and get some footage of some woke bunker entrances. World War II, obviously, you know, occupation of certain golf courses and parts of land. And, you know, there's reminders of this. Like, you know, we'll obviously put some stuff in the films. I think Case was showing us the Lancaster bomber that had crashed on the 14th fairway at Eindhoven. Well, at Kenema, you've got 122 German-occupied bunkers underneath the ground.
These aren't sand bunkers.
No, these are concrete, you know, structures underneath. Now, some of them are gone, but the greenkeepers are still using them. It's like...
And some of them you can see, and they're like little storm shelters. And you're like, yeah.
There's obviously like
the
a
worst storm ever comes,
one.
you're probably going to be all right if you're tucked away in there.
But yeah, no, unbelievable.
Because there was that big one on 15, which was the world class par 3, which is what I just been reminded. We were just talking about, which
you look off to the right, don't you? And you're like,
that's
right.
Yeah.
I think that was the only thing I'll say is when we came off 15 at Kenema, I was like, crikey, the enormity of what we signed up to here and the amount of golf and travel is like, it was quite overfacing, because it was like, I hate being late for things, and we were like, crikey, we're stretched to get to Noordwijk here. So much about Noordwijk, can't wait to see it. And there's a little reminder in there. The one day that we tried to pull off too much, we tried to pull off too much every day, but 32 courses in a day. I really wanted to hang longer at Kennemer.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to enjoy lunch. I wanted to play the 18 holes in the morning. I would have loved to have seen the A9 and the Penning stuff.
Definitely want to go back and try and spend
I
a
just
bit more
think there's
time.
a lesson in there for us. You know, we wouldn't have got through these courses, and we desperately wanted to showcase and kind of see them and go and do them. But you know, would we have been better off to have just played one course on that day? 100%.
Yeah, but then
you wouldn't have seen it all.
yeah,
No, exactly. Well, this is the thing, and
But
there's-
somewhere like Japan, where even with Tiregate and laptops being carried down by case and so on, we did. I think that was probably the course we got to know. Eindhoven as well, actually, because we did get there early morning and we weren't rushing away from that. We had dinner. I think Eindhoven and Japan, we probably got more of a sense of what those courses were like.
so
Eindhoven, we were on site 11 till 9 or 10. Utrecht, we were on site pretty much from 8 till 6. And then it was like, oh, crikey. And you need time to fall in love with it. And I know we would take the piss because I'm like, if there's one saying now that I really hate, it's ticking off golf courses. But I think that's fair. Like, I think this whole concept of I'm going to go there because I just need to tick it off. It's like, no, do you not need to go and tick off anywhere? And, you know, we sit on this podcast at times preaching about, like, you know, you should stay put in one place and do all that. And then it was just a shame that we didn't get to spend the whole day at Kennemer. And also, hell, I'd have loved to have spent a little bit longer at Nordvik as well, because playing the 18 holes and then, you know, looking at some of the course stuff with Martin, and, you know, could have hung there as well a lot longer.
Yeah, it's a really difficult balance to get right, and I think I don't ever regret anything that I do. I would have liked to have spent more time at Kennemer for sure, and hopefully, I'd love to go back and have another crack at that, because that was really good fun.
Special
it's really hard
place.
because a lot of time we spend looking at the course, but the club is so important to it all. And it's harder to get a feel for the club when it is just like in and out, just like, oh yeah, it's got wood paneling, yeah, it's got.
And you learn
specific
so much more on repeat with these things.
And we're just going to leave it there at the end of the Roundup Part 1 podcast. There will be a Part 2 coming out shortly, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for Part 2 podcast of our trip to Netherlands. Once again, huge thank you to FootJoy, sponsor for this series, and until next time.
Watch this.